In this recording, I want to talk about input masks. Input masks, well, before I start, let me tell you that I'm going to be using the pizza orders database that you should see in your student files. If you didn't follow along with the first recording, it shouldn't cause any trouble here. I already have that open, so I'm going to open that up. Input masks allow you to, again, help the user enter valid data by giving them a mask or a sample of what you want the data to look like. One of the most common masks, I'm going to go to the customer and design mode. One of the most common masks is on a phone number. Masks allow you to do two things. They allow you to designate to the user what format you want phone numbers entered, or even more conveniently, it allows the user to enter just the digits, and then Access automatically puts the parentheses, dashes, spaces, dots, whatever you want in your phone numbers, puts them in there automatically. Masks can also help storage space. Notice my phone number here is sized for size 10. That means an area code, a 3-digit prefix, and a 4-digit number. That's 10 digits, but where's the space reserved for the parentheses and the dashes and so on? It's not there. The phone numbers themselves are stored as 10-digit numbers. Okay. Once I apply a mask, the mask will automatically format these and automatically enter those special characters, and they will appear with parentheses and dashes, but they will still only be stored with the digits. Also notice, for demonstration purposes, and Aaron Rodgers' phone number here, and no, that's not his real phone number. I hope I didn't put an area code in just to see what happens. All right, so let's take a look at what masks do and how they work. When you define a mask, going back to design view here, you define it down here in the properties, and here's a place for the input mask, and there's a wizard that helps you through the process. But before I walk through that wizard, let me just give you an overview of what a mask looks like. A mask is composed of 3 parts. There's the mask itself, which has special code characters in it to tell Access that these are the kinds of characters that you want to accept. There is a code that designates whether or not you want to store the literals. The literals are the parentheses and the dashes in a phone number, the dash in a zip +4 number. Another classic example is Social Security numbers. It always has dashes in the same places. Do you want those dashes stored? Typically the answer is no, but if you wish, you can store those numbers. And finally, at the end, there's a placeholder. The placeholder is simply a character that appears on the screen that lets the user know that you expect them to fill something in that place. We'll see those in just a second. So again, a mask is 3 components: the mask, the literal storage, and the placeholder. Each of those is separated with a semicolon. The only one that's actually required is the mask. The literals is optional. If you don't include it, if it's missing, that means don't save the literals. That's the default. So if we leave this out, we don't save the literals. If we don't put the placeholder in, we get an underscore character placeholder. And I'll show you some examples of those. Okay, so those are the 3 characters. So now that we've had that overview, let's take a look, before we go a little bit more. Here are the special characters that are used inside the mask. So these are special codes that mean something special to Access. If you want to force the user to enter a digit, and it's required, you use a 0 code, and that tells Access that this is a required digit. The user can't leave it out. If you want to make it an optional digit, you use a 9. The user can leave it blank or missing, but if they type anything, it has to be a digit. Digit or a space is a £, that's always optional. If you want to force the user to enter letters, use a capital L, or a question mark if you want it to be optional. If you want a letter or a digit, an A or a little a, and any character is an an ampersand sign, or a capital C. Most of the time you're going to be using 0s and 9s. I will be doing an example with some letters in them as well. So those are the special characters. So when you see them, I'll bring this back up again. But let's go into the mask here. And until you get comfortable with masks, I recommend that you use the wizard. These dots load up the input mask wizard. And here it comes. And Access has already defined some pretty common masks. Masks for times, masks for phone numbers with parentheses, masks for Social Security numbers. These are predefined, so if you want one of them, let's say I want the phone number because we're working on the phone number. If you want one, then you can just pick it from the list. If you can't find the one you want on the list, can always add it. And you can even save it by editing the list. And if you have one that you're using, maybe you have part numbers, you can add it to the list so that it's always there on your machine. It's beyond the scope of this class. Actually, as far as I know, in the homework assignments, the only mask they ask you to enter is the phone number. So you pick the one that you want, click Next, and then you get to provide some details. So here's the mask that Access is currently using for a phone number. There are, remember, 9s are optional digits. The area code is optional. And then there are 7 required digits. If you've got a phone number, US phone number, those 7 digits are required, but the area code is optional. Now at this point, let me say that in today's world with cell phones, I don't think area codes are optional anymore. Many people are bringing their cell phones in from other area codes, and you just can't count on most people having the same area code anymore. And so those 9s, I'm going to ask you in the homework assignment to change them into 0s and make them required. Notice the space, notice the parentheses. As a matter of fact, let me zoom in here so it makes it maybe a little easier to see. Okay. Notice the space down here at the bottom of the screen, and the parentheses and the dashes. Those are just going to be filled in. The user types the 7 or the 10 digits, and the spaces and the parentheses and the dashes will always go in the same place. The one other character here that's a little bizarre is the exclamation mark, and this is, I believe, the only mask that uses it. It designates that this field should be filled in from right to left. So if the user only types 7 digits, they should go over here on the right, instead of filling in from left to right. That's what the exclamation mark means. I don't think this mask works very well. I'm going to show you why here in just a little bit. All right, the other thing that we can take a look at is the placeholder character. Notice by default we get an underscore. You can drop that list down, and here's some other suggestions, but you're not limited to those characters. You can use just about any character that you want. Normally, I will use either a star or a pound sign or an underscore. There is a way to use an empty space, and I'll show you how to do that when we get there. If you'd like, you can try one of these here. I'm going to try it actually in Access, but if you want to experiment with your mask, you can try it down here. And notice that the dash and the spaces and the parentheses are already inserted. Now, because I clicked way out here, it's waiting for me to enter data there. I'm going to click back at the beginning, my arrow key. This is one of the other issues I have with masks. They don't automatically start in that first position where you can start typing. That would be nice. Right. So now here I have the area code, but the area code is optional. So how do I leave it out? Could just slide over it with the arrow key. So that's not too bad. And we'll put in a number here, 444, 4444. Notice it just jumps over. The other nice thing is if the user types 444 dash, it just ignores it. Actually, it feels to the user like they typed it. So if the users like to type the dashes, they can, but they will very quickly get comfortable with the fact that they don't have to. Press the tab key and it'll analyze that and see if it works. If you put one in here that doesn't match. So if I put in 342, 3121, you would think that would fill to the right, but it doesn't. I get an error saying that doesn't match my mask. It's because the beginning of my mask is where the optional digits are, so I have to leave those out. Many users may not be comfortable with that with arrow keys and those kinds of things. All right, so that's how that mask works. Press escape to get rid of that. This is the placeholder character. I'm going to stick with that. Next it asks, do you want to store the literals, the symbols, the parentheses, the dashes, the spaces? We want to save space in our database. There's really no reason to store these because they're always in the same place. It's actually a better idea not to store them, because then if the user decides to change the way that the area or the phone number is going to appear, maybe it's got dashes all the way through, we're going to change ours to make it look like that, or dots. We can change just the mask and it changes the appearance of phone numbers everywhere without having to worry about the data. If you insert the literals, then the characters themselves are there, and when you change the mask, it messes everything up. So my advice, and in all the homework assignments that I remember, is do not store the literals. Remember, that's the default. Finish, and there's our zoom in on that. There's the mask, and notice here's the first part, the mask. Then there's a semicolon with nothing in between. The nothing in between, remember, if the store literals character is missing,
That means don't save the literals. So access here is taking a shortcut, is not putting anything in there. You could put a 1 instead. If you want to save the literals, and it's fairly rare, then you use a 0. So there's the next semi. So even though the fill store character, the store the literals code isn't there, you still have to put the extra semicolon there to say, here's my placeholder character for the underscore. So now we can try that. And it should work pretty much the same way. Save it, yes. Add a new record. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here and add a new person. I'm not even going to put in the name. And notice this is another part of the problem that I have with masks, is that it doesn't show the mask immediately. You have to type the first character. Many users would type the parenthesis. It doesn't hurt anything if you do. And now it's ready, and you can arrow key and space or space through here and then type in your phone number. I'm going to shift tab to go away from it, and it accepts it. That's perfectly fine. And let's also note that if I go up to the top, the first phone number is right aligned. Right? So it works well with the right alignment. It fills that field to the right. But what if I don't want the user to have to, in particular when it's me, I don't want to have to type those dashes or arrow keys or grab my mouse and click over here so I can start there. What if I want to be able to just type a 7-digit phone number? I'm going to go back and press escape here, go back to design view. I'm going to change my mask. And I'm going to make the last 3 characters optional. So these first 3 characters, I'm going to turn into zeros. And the last 3 characters, I'm going to turn into 9s. Now this looks a little disconcerting, but if it's my database, and I'm the one who's using it, I feel, and notice that Aaron Rodgers' phone number still looks okay, even though the optional digits are at the end. Right? It filled to the right. But now when I enter a new phone number in here, I can just type let's just tab over to it. I can just type 3444444. Looks stupid until I press Shift Tab or Tab and go away from it, and then it right aligns it. So I think that's what that mask should look like. But honestly, today, let's cancel that record. I pressed escape to cancel records. If you didn't catch that in the first recording, escape cancels your changes to a field. Escape again cancels your change to the entire record. In this case, cancels the adding of a new record. I'm going to change my mask, and since I'm in the modern mobile world, I'm going to make all characters required. So now whenever I enter a phone number, I have to enter 10 digits. But if I do that, what happens to Aaron Rodgers' phone number? He's already in without an area code. Well, it accepts it just fine. You tab over to it and leave, that's okay. But if you try to edit it, let's say his phone number has changed, it's now 345. And I try to leave. Then I get an error message saying that the characters that I've entered don't match the mask. Now, because I've edited it, I have to provide a 7-digit phone number, or pardon me, a 10-digit phone number. So I'll click there and do the 715. And now we're good to go. Okay, so that's the phone number mask. I normally just use a full-blown phone number. Let me wipe that out temporarily and show you how I often do it. Once you get comfortable with masks, you can do this very, very quickly. I want the phone number to look like 3 required digits followed by a dot, followed by 3 required digits, followed by 4 required digits. Because I'm filling it, it doesn't matter that it's right filled except for existing data. Right? And there it will kind of make a mess and you'll have to fix it if you have any data without the area code. But notice I put nothing else in here, no semicolons. The literal characters are not going to be stored because that saved the literals is missing. And because the placeholder character is missing, I get an underscore. Now in this case, the book likes this format. Like the dots, that's a new international phone number format. A lot of companies are switching to it. Save it. And now notice all my phone numbers have dots in them. And when I enter a new record, the underscore character should show up. And there they go.
Even though I didn't designate them, I get underscore placeholder characters. And I can enter a phone number. So that's what I usually do with my masks. I don't even mess with the placeholders and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But let's say I want to remind the user that those are digits. So I really want to, I use pound signs whenever I want the users to type in digits. If I want to put in a custom placeholder, I have to put the semicolon, skip over with a second semicolon the store literals character, and then type the semicolon. Or I mean pound sign, excuse me. Let's try that. And now when I type a new phone number, I get pound signs. So that's how you get those in there. All right, one other kind of mask that you might use. Now my customers table doesn't have a state code. Another very common code or mask that I use is a character letter mask. You have to type letters, and I automatically capitalize them for you. What you don't see in my special characters here for the is how do you capitalize characters. It is in my notes, but I'm going to show you an example. Let's cancel that record, okay? And now we're going to go, but so for the state code, that would be handy, but I don't have a state code here. That's another common one that I use. I'll show you what the mask would look like in just a second. I'm going to switch to the orders table. And if you, in design view, and if you listen to the first recording, remember that I, for the size, designated that the size in the validation has to be large, medium, small, or personal. But what it still allows you to do is type them lowercase and it accepts them. If I want them all to look the same and be consistent, in my case of being anal, I guess, I would like to capitalize that first letter. The way you capitalize the letters, you use a greater than sign. Every character that gets entered after that that's a letter is automatically capitalized. But I only want the first letter capitalized, and I want the first letter is required. Actually, the first 5 are required because all of my sizes are at least 5 characters long. So what's a required letter? Here's a letter. Required is a capital L, and these are case sensitive, obviously, with the A and the A. All right, so I want a letter that is capitalized, and now a less than sign says everything after this, make it lowercase again. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4 required letters, and then 3 optional letters, and you might not remember, so we'll double check. Optional letters or question marks. I don't want to accept any spaces. I don't want to accept any digits. Any character would represent dashes and semicolons, and I don't want any of that stuff. I just want letters for my sizes. So I'm going to use an optional question mark here. And personal is 8 letters long. Yep, 8 letters long, so I need 1, 2, 3 more characters. So this requires the user to enter at least 5 characters, optionally accepts up to 3 more, and capitalizes the first letter only. So let's see how that works. Okay, here's my size. So I'll tab over to that. Notice as soon as I start typing, the placeholder characters will come in. So I'll type an L, and notice that it automatically capitalizes it. Watch what happens when I try to type a number. Nothing. Won't take them. Because the mask says letters only, it won't take the other ones. If I try to leave now, it'll yell at me because I have 5 required letters, and there aren't 5 required letters. What about this error message? Is there a way to make it more user-friendly? The answer is no. Another downside of using masks is if you use the mask, the user makes an error, they have to be able to decipher this error message. And that's pretty cryptic if you ask me. There's no way to change that. So I'll type the rest and leave. If I come back, type an S, notice it's automatically capitalized. The rest of them are automatically lowercase. Even if I shift, they're lowercase. If I mistype small, then my validation that I did in the first recording kicks in and says that is not one of the options. But as I type them, they're automatically capitalized. I'm not pressing the shift key. The P is capitalized and the rest are automatically lowercase. So that's another way to do masks. If I was doing a state code, I told you I was going to show that to you, I forgot. If I was doing a state code, my mask would look like, let's just go to the Word document, like this. Uppercase, automatically. LL, 2 required digits. All of our state codes are 2 letters long. All of them are all uppercase, so the user doesn't have to press the shift key, and they get used to that after a while. They just go in there and they type WI for Wisconsin, all lowercase, and it capitalizes it for them automatically. One other thing I want to demo here real quick is when you define a mask like phone numbers. Let's go back to the customers table. When you define a mask for phone numbers, you will often want that same mask to be used throughout your entire database. So in all of your forms, in all of your reports, etc., have the phone numbers show up like this. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to catch that, and you have to catch it at just the right time. You have to make an edit to this. So what I'm going to do is take the pound sign back out and put the underscore or dash in or something and press tab. And when I leave, notice that this little pop-up window shows, and it allows me to update the mask everywhere the phone number is used. So I'm going to say, yes, do that. And it tells me, and if you had a whole bunch of them, they'd all be listed here, and you could pick and choose, but I want them all. And now I still want my pound sign, so I'm going to put it back. And when I leave, you have to edit this field and leave in order to propagate these changes, and that's kind of a pain, but you want to test your mask right away. As soon as you test it, then this doesn't come back again. So I'm going to say yes, propagate it. And now if I go to my form, I have to save this and close it first, or at least save it and go to Datasheet View, open up my form, and phone numbers have the dots in them. And if I add a new record, the phone numbers have the pound sign mask. It's been propagated to this form. That does not happen automatically. The only place it happens automatically is in queries. So that's propagation. The final thing I want to show you is what if you don't want a placeholder character. So I'm going to go back to my design view mask for my size, and an underscore is not bad, but if I don't want any, then here's how you do that. You simply put 2 semicolons because I want to skip over the store literals. There's no literals to store here anyways. And then quotation marks around your space. That forces the mask character to be a space. Now we can go look at that and save it and add a new one. And for the size here, I must have saved that one. But if I wipe that out, notice there's no placeholder characters anymore. There is, it's a space. Right? There is a placeholder character, but it's basically invisible. And now I'm going to escape. That cancels my change to the field. Escape again, cancels my change to the record. I want to delete that record. So those are input masks. One other thing I do want to mention, a lot of the book, the old version of the book, new one doesn't do it. The old version of the book used to put masks in on dates. I don't think that's appropriate. Right? When you type dates, users normally type the slashes. It doesn't hurt anything to do that. So I don't normally put masks on dates. I don't put masks on numeric fields like order total and coupon. The masks don't mean anything. Formatting is more appropriate for those types of fields. The only thing I put masks on are text fields that have a given format. And the ones that are provided by Access in the builder, the social security number, the phone number, the zip +4, etc., those are the ones that are most commonly used. So I hope that clarifies masks for you a little bit. The only ones I think they ask you to do in the book are the phone number mask, but there are a few others that you can use.